Good morning, evening, afternoon, or whatever time you are watching this video. This is Mr. Simonian, and today we're going to be doing some examples on unit conversions. The learning objective for this video is to be able to perform conversions from one unit of measure to another and be able to provide the correct answer and the correct units. Let's start with something easy. The question is, convert 6 feet into inches. To do any unit conversion, you always just start with the number that you're being given. So we're going to start with 6 feet. And we're trying to get this 6 feet into inches. So the other thing that you always need to do a unit conversion is you need some true statement that relates the units that you have to the units that you are trying to end up in. So what you do with this statement is you turn it into a fraction, and with that fraction, the term that goes in the bottom is the term that you're trying to cancel out, or at least the term that goes on the bottom is the term that you want to cancel out. So because we're in units of feet and we want to get into units of inches, then when we use this, when we make our conversion factor, we're going to put the feet in the bottom and we're going to put the inches on the top. And when we put feet on the bottom, when we have feet on the top and feet on the bottom, those cancel. And that's what you always want to happen. You always want to see the units that you have being canceled, and you always want to be ending up just being left with the units that you're trying to get into. And from there, you would go into your calculator and you would do 6 times 12. And that should come out to 72 inches. 6 times 2 is 72. Sorry, 6 times 12 is 72, and then the units are inches. Let's try another one that involves some metric conversions. So we're going to be converting 650 millimeters into meters. So there's millimeters are, the prefix milli means 1/1000th. So a millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter. That means there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. So if we want to convert from millimeters into meters, then I'm going to need my millimeters on the bottom when I'm making my conversion factor. So I'm going to put the 1,000 millimeters on the bottom, and I'm going to put my 1 meter on top. And just like we would want, the millimeters on the top cancel with the millimeters on the bottom. Now, with fractions, you multiply numerators across, and you multiply denominators across. And there's nothing here, but really you can think of it as always being, any number, you can always think of it as being over 1. So you're going to multiply numerators across. 650 times 1 is 650. And then you're going to multiply denominators across. And 1 times 1,000 is 1,000. And the units that we have left are the units of meters. And then if you put this in your calculator, you should get a decimal answer that looks like this. 0.65, and then the units are meters. Remember, there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter, so this answer should make sense because there would be 500 millimeters in half a meter, and 650 is a little bit more than 500. So we should have a little bit more than a half a meter, and we do. We have 0.65 meters. This one is a little bit harder because it involves multiple steps, but I think if we have the idea from the previous 2 examples, this should be pretty straightforward. And now that we have this down, we can answer some more interesting questions like, how many seconds are there in 1 year? So we're starting with 1 year, and we're trying to end up in units of seconds. So we're going to have to do multiple steps. And if you were trying to do this example on your own, just be careful that you don't try to go from years into months. Going from years into months can be tricky because different months have different numbers of days. So once you try to go from months into days, then you would have an issue. So you can kind of get past that by just going straight from years into days. And hopefully we know that in 1 year, there's 365 days. So every time we set up our unit conversion, we just want to be getting closer. If we have multiple steps, then we always just want to be getting closer to the units that we ultimately want to end up in, right? We ultimately want to end up in seconds, but we're going to have to do a couple conversions on the way there. So we're going to start going from years into days. And if we're going from years into days, we want to end up in days, then, and we want the years to cancel, then we want to put I want to put my years on the bottom, and I want to put the days on the top. So I'm canceling out my units of years, and now I'm in units of days. Now that I'm in units of days, I want to go into the next unit. And the next unit would be going from days into hours. And I'm going to set up my conversion factor in a similar way. I'm trying to get rid of days, so I'm going to put my days on the bottom, and I'm getting into hours, so I'm going to put my hours on the top. The days on the top cancel with the days on the bottom, and now my answer is in units of hours. So now I want to go from hours into minutes. So we know that in 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. So now we've canceled out our hours, and now we're in units of minutes. And then we know that in 1 minute, there's 60 seconds. So now finally, we've canceled out our minutes, and we've went all the way from years into seconds. Now, to get our final answer, what we have to do is we just multiply across all of these numbers. So you're going to do 1 times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. And if you do that in your calculator, if you put that in your calculator, you should get 31,536,000 seconds. 31,536,000 seconds. That's how many seconds there are in 1 year. So don't waste them. And now that we have all of that, I think we can put it all together and do something like convert 90 kilometers per hour into meters per second. So this is going to work just like any of the other conversions have worked before, just that now we have units on the top and the bottom. But the process is the same. So I'm going to start by converting the distance units. So we're in distance units of kilometers, and we want to go from kilometers into meters. So we know that there's 1 kilometer for every 1,000 meters, right? Kilo means 1,000. So my kilometers on the top cancel with my kilometers on the bottom. And now I have the right distance units on the top. My meters, I've gotten into units of meters. And now I want to convert these hours in the denominator into seconds. Because the hours that because the time units of this term are in the denominator, then I just need to be careful that I'm always making this, so I have hours in the denominator. That means that I want hours in the numerator now. So that, because I still want these things to cancel so that I can end up in the new unit. So for every 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. But I just have to be careful to put the 1 hour on the top. and the 60 minutes on the bottom. That way the hours on top can still cancel with the hours on bottom. And now in the denominator, notice that my new time units are in minutes. And now, similar deal, I'm in units of minutes in the denominator, but I want to get into units of seconds. So if I want to get into units of seconds, I need to make sure that my minutes cancel, and then I end up with units of seconds. And then for every 1 minute, there's 60 seconds. So I put my 1 minute on the top and my 60 seconds on the bottom. Minutes cancel here, and minutes cancel here. So now notice that my final units in the denominator are seconds. So now I have meters in the top and I have seconds in the bottom, which is exactly what I wanted. Now, to get my final answer, I'm either gonna, if the number appears in the top, then you're gonna multiply. And if the number appears in the bottom, you're gonna divide. So I'm gonna end up doing 90 times 1000 divided by 60 and then divided by 60 again. So if you go into your calculator, you're gonna do 90 times 1000, and then you're gonna divide by 60, and then you're gonna divide by 60 again. And that should come out to 25. The number that you get should be 25, and then the final units should be meters per second.